Today's video is a short tutorial on Eric Satie's first Gymnopédies, which I think is a fantastic way for us to practice jumps on the piano. Are you sitting comfortably? Then let's begin. Hi, this is Tommy with Tommy's Piano Corner, the place for returning pianists or indeed anybody who loves piano to share tips and ideas of how to get the best from this great hobby. If it is your first trip here, please do think about subscribing. Simply hit the little icon in the bottom right hand corner of your screen now and it's all done for you. I've seen a number of requests on various social media platforms and elsewhere asking for exercises to practice jumps on piano. And of course, people come back with lots of what I would call unmusical ways of practicing these things. But you know, regular viewers know my view is that I think if we want to get better at something, then we should practice music that has that difficulty in it. So for example, I did a few tutorials on how we can use Bach preludes as a way of improving our finger independence. So today, in a similar way, I want to look at how we can use Eric Satie's Gymnopédies as a way of practicing jumps. Eric Satie, as you probably know, was a French composer quite well known for his, call them minimalistic type works. And a lot of them are instantly recognizable anywhere around the world. I mean, anybody that's my age might remember, in fact, this Gymnopédies No. 1 from Gary Newman's 1980 single, We Are Glass. As well as the Gymnopédies, he also wrote a set of Gnossiennes, which are actually quite similar in structure and style. I mean, basically, they're a simple accompaniment in the left hand that has a bass note followed by a chord, and more often than not, a simple one-note melody in the right hand. And it's this simple structure, I think, that makes them so useful for practicing jumps if we're not so good at them. Today, I'm just going to go through the first of his Gymnopédies, but to be honest, the practice techniques I'm going to recommend for learning this will apply equally well to any of them, and the Gnossiennes as well, if you want to learn those too. As we can see from the score, Satie tells us to play this slowly and painfully, and you'll often see very strange ways of describing what he wants you to do, but they give you a good idea of the mood he thinks we need to try and create with it. As you can see, the jumps in general are anything between an octave and 2 octaves, and you know, it's always done within a nice relaxed quarter note. You'll notice that the dynamic is generally piano or pianissimo, and therefore we need to land the jumps nice and softly, and of course keep our hand nice and relaxed as we do this. Now the opening 4 bars, of course, you could play using both hands. You take the bass note in the left hand and the chord in the right hand. However, given we're going to use this as a way of practicing jumps as well as learning the piece, then for now, let's take the opening bars with just the left hand. Now, the first exercise to try and do here is to make the jump without actually playing the notes that we land on. So by that, what I mean is we play the bass note and then we jump to the chord with our right hand and we let our fingers rest on the keyboard and we look, did we arrive in the right place? Are our fingers perfectly over the notes that they need to play? And of course, given that there are only 2 chords here, then just memorize them for now. And that way you don't need to be looking at the music. You can fully concentrate on the keyboard as you're doing this. Now, as we're practicing like this, when we make the jump and we check whether we're in the right place, if we are in the right place, then we'll play the chord. However, if we're not in the right place, then we don't make any adjustments. So don't move your hand a little bit, don't move a finger a little bit, just look at where you're out, how far you're out, which finger is not in the right place, and then go back to the bass note and try over again with the jump and see again, have you landed in the right place? And one of the reasons we do this is, of course, that we don't want to practice playing wrong notes. But the second reason is that we want to practice landing the jump first time every time without needing to make micro adjustments. Now, arguably, this is a slow piece of music, so you could make tiny adjustments when you perform it. Why not? But as you move to faster and faster material, you need to make sure the jumps are reliable, because you can't do this because you don't have the time. So let's just get into the good habit of doing it properly right from the start. The trick here, of course, is to be patient with ourselves, okay? We're trying to learn how to do something that we don't find easy to do straight away, so we need to give ourselves the time to be able to do this. And remember that the shortest distance between 2 points, as Neuhaus described in his book, The Art of Piano Playing, is actually an arch. It's on up and jump down like that. However, we do need to make sure that when we press the keys, we go directly downwards and not off to the side. Now, using just these same introductory bars, let's practice the jump in the opposite direction. So to do this, we'll start on the chord, we'll play the chord, and then we'll jump to the following bass note. But again, as we did last time, let's not play the notes. Let's look first. Is our finger exactly where it needs to be, right over the note? And if it isn't, again, we must resist the temptation to make an adjustment. Let's stop, go back to the chord, but consciously remind ourselves, how far did we overshoot? How far did we undershoot? And then try it again. And each time we just make sure we're able to land perfectly on the note that we need, and only then do we play it. You'll notice here that I use my pinky for the bass note. Now, you could use 3 or 4, and sometimes, given that the actual distance you need to jump is almost the same, whichever finger you choose, and these other fingers can sometimes be more reliable, that might be easier. However, I find that in a lot of music, you really do always need to use your pinky in these situations, so we might as well just get used to doing that now. Again, work through this patiently, keep practicing until you can reliably land that jump each time, and then extend it to 2 bars at a time, and 4 bars at a time once you're good with 2 bars. As always, initially, don't play the notes until you've checked that you landed exactly where you intended to land with the fingers you intended to use, and only then play them. Anytime that you don't, again, I'll repeat, don't make any adjustments. Just stop there, go back to the previous note or previous chord and try again. Now we're ready to move on to the next 4 bars, where we have also the right hand melody that we need to add in. As you can see, these notes are close together, so once you've worked out your fingering, you'll be able to play them without needing to look at your hand, meaning that you can focus 100% on the left hand as you're making the jumps. As you practice this, keep your right hand in contact with the keys, and first practice the upward jump, ready to play the appropriate right hand note with the chord. As we did for the opening bars, let's not play the notes though until we're happy we landed the jump accurately. Then we practice from the chord to the bass notes or the downward jump, again playing the appropriate right hand notes at the same time. Move forward bar by bar, practicing each jump a few times, always checking you've landed correctly before playing the notes. As you start to notice that your hands reliably make the jump, again, start then playing the chord without checking first. Aim to gradually add bars together, both in the introduction and in the next 4 bars, until you find you can play the first 8 bars well each time and the jumps no longer intimidate you. I highly recommend you avoid working hands separately for this. I stopped doing lots of hand-separate practice after having read Neuhaus's The Art of Piano Playing, where he says we should treat hands-separate as an emergency exit and not as a regular way of practicing. To be honest then, for the rest of the piece, it's pretty much a case of rinse and repeat and work on 4 or 6 bar segments at a time. However, I do think there are a few places where it's worth thinking about our approach a little bit. As I said, for the opening 4 bars, in a performance, I'd split this between my hands. After all, why make something more difficult than it needs to be? Bars 9 to 12 present an interesting challenge where we have an F sharp played by the right hand and held throughout the entire 4 bars. However, at the same time, Satie tells us to play the same F sharp as part of the left hand chord. Given the harmony changes with every bar, we'll also need to change the pedal at each bar too. The way I approach this is to play the F sharp as it appears with the melody and then repeat it using my right hand with the left hand playing just the 2 lower notes of the chord in each bar. This way I can keep that note held as I change the pedal. Another place where you might want to change the standard pattern is bars 19 to 21. Here I've always opted to play the chords with the right hand and substituting my finger on the E natural melody note as I do this. Finally, there are a number of chords where Satie wants the left hand to span a ninth. If this is a bit of a stretch for your hands, then simply take the top note of each chord with your right hand, so you simply play the triad with your left. Even if you can just stretch a ninth, you might find this is a more reliable way of managing the jumps themselves, as you're not needing to add that extra awkward stretch when you land on the chord. Out of interest, Daniel Barenboim avoids a similar ninth stretch in Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata by using the left hand instead of the right to play the lower note. I'm sure he can reach a ninth, but I assume he finds he has more control by using the other hand, and after all, it's always the musical result that matters, not the fingers that are being used. Another useful practice trick for doing this is to play the bass note an octave lower than written. So in fact, you're needing to jump, double the distance. It's probably just psychological, but when you then go back to the jump as written, it does feel easier to do. Another useful way to do it is to play an octave in your left hand and then jump from there, as of course lots of music is written with the bass being played in octaves and then jumping to chords above them. Give this a try for yourself and see how you get on. You can download the sheet music for the Gymnopédies and the Gnossiennes from IMSLP and use these same tips to practice the other pieces in this series. And you'll find, I'm sure, that in no time you feel much more confident when you're playing music where your left hand has to jump around the piano. If you're not already, then please do subscribe to Tommy's Piano Corner. Don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you're notified of new videos as and when they're released. I do thank you very much for watching today and look forward to seeing you very soon.